Hello there, welcome to the program Governance and Development Conversation, proudly sponsored to you by the African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, ANEJ, with the support from ID and the European Union, EU. Our guest on the program for today is the Deputy Executive Director, ANEJ, Dr. Leo Atakpo, and the focus of today's program is the rule of law in anti-corruption project, assessing an assessment of anti-corruption unit. We'll be taking a look into the anti-corruption and the rule of law in fighting corruption. My name is Lawrence Osifo, your anchor on the program, and it's a great delight to have you join us on the program this beautiful Monday evening. We'll start up the conversation with my guest, Dr. Leo Atakpo. It's a great delight to have you join us on the program.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Happy holidays to you. All right, let's look at the fight against corruption, the anti-corruption agencies we have, the EFCC, the ICPC, and the likes. What are some of the strategies that has been put in place by your body in terms of the fight against corruption?
Well, for us, a civil society organization, we are primarily engaged in advocacy work.
Okay.
We try to do work around reforms of various policies and programs of government.
Okay.
Since the Olusegun Obasanjo administration, there have been conscious efforts, by various governments, succeeding governments, to deal with the problem of corruption because of the impact, the negative impact of corruption on our development as a people. During the Obasanjo administration, if you recall, from year 2000, thereabout, they were able to put in place the anti-corruption agencies, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and all of those other institutions, BPP, the Bureau of Public Procurement, and all of those, are all targeted at improving, the war against corruption, transparency and accountability in governance. After the Obasanjo administration, the Yaradua administration / Goodluck, they also did their bit, as well as the Muhammadu Buhari administration. So those laws have been there. And again, you come to find that there are some weaknesses, associated with implementation, because, the National Assembly, that's why the National Assembly is there. From time to time, civil society organization will identify these weaknesses. We point them out to government to say, you need to look at this area, you need to look at this area, you need to look at this area. You need to tweak this law this way, you need to tweak this law to strengthen, the war against corruption. Because the way society runs. Very often people can easily pick up loopholes, on the law, and how to, evade justice and so on and so forth. So that's one of the reasons why, in the course of implementing our CASAN project, civil society, advocacy to support anti-corruption, in Nigeria, CASAN. We felt that there is the need to look at the ICPC Act. I mean the Actus. The ICPC is responsible for, the Actus, the anti-corruption units. Anti-corruption units and transparency units,
Actus,
in the various
MDAs, the Ministries, Departments, and agencies.
So you find that those units, over time, what we try to do is to find out how have they been faring.
Absolutely.
What progress have we really had with them, and what are their challenges, and what can we really do more to strengthen, what they do. Because essentially those actors, they are put in place as a unit within each of those MDAs to improve integrity in governance, to improve transparency, and of course to fight corruption. So how have they fared over the years since 2000 up until now? What have been the progress they have made? And what are the challenges that we are seeing that they have? And what So the research report we have just completed, and then we are about throwing it out to the public, and then of course to work with government, to work with the ICPC, you know, to see how we can strengthen, you know, actors, you know, across the MDAs. You know, the research we took example of 20 MDAs. 20 MDAs to look at how those units in those 20 MDAs have fared, you know, over the years. You know, and the report was quite revealing, you know, as to the progress that has been made, and where, you know, some tweaks need to be done, you know, to the ICPC Act, you know, to strengthen the operations.
Okay, when you talk about strengthening the operations of either the ICPC or the EFCC, the anti-corruption agency set up by laws to fight against corruptions, could there be mechanism or modalities to checkmate some of their functions on how they work?
Yeah, you know, there's no perfect law anywhere in the world. Yeah. So the actors themselves, they are, you know, like babies of the ICPC.
Okay.
They were facilitated, you know, by the ICPC. So they exist in almost all of the MDAs. And so their role is to ensure, you know, transparency within the MDAs. So but we discover that those units, they will come up with their reports. Because their report is also to flag some red flags, to, you know, to raise some red flags. And we find out in the process of this research that there are some MDAs that, you know, once such red flags are raised, you know, action is not taken. You know, because the units themselves, they don't have the teeth to bite. They can only
bark.
They can only bark.
Like
they can recommend to their bosses in the office. They'll say this, you know, a unit. We're not talking about a department. It's just a unit. So you now inform your division ahead that this is our finding. This we observe this, we observe that, we observe this. And then some bosses could, you know,
they just walk around it,
paper the crack and something like that. And that is not good, you know, for the fight against corruption. There is the need for those units to be strengthened by the law to enable them, you know, to also bite, not just to bark, but to bite, you know. So once you trace and you confirm a corruption plan.
There's a trail of corruption.
There's the need for them to link quickly with the ICPC to move in, instead of waiting for one boss to
come and dance around it.
You know, paper crack, to paper the cracks and all of that, and then. So those are some of the weaknesses that were spotted in the course of this work. That we feel that yes, there could be need for further review of the ICPC Act.
Some of your findings and recommendations in the course of the anti-corruption transparency unit in terms of transparency, accountability, and ethical compliance. Do you think some of the MDAs, the ministries, department, or agency, they are complying with some of your findings?
Well, because the finding is just now, it's a fresh report.
It's a fresh report.
Yes. So the next phase of the work is for us now to go back to the ICPC, and then to also go to the MDAs, to go to the National Assembly, you know, for our advocacy work. To say, National Assembly, we need you to do this. Take a second look at the ICPC Act. We require amendment in this area, we require amendment in this area, we require amendment in this area. We also go to ICPC, you know, for your job to be properly effective, you know, for it to be effective, working with the actors, we need you also to give your political support, you know, to this area of our advocacy. So that's how we have framed it, and it's our next phase of work, you know, flowing from the research.
All right, talking about the National Assembly in itself that comprises of the green chambers and the red chambers, the Senate and the House of Reps, could there be some sort of maybe lobby we know lobbying itself is not corruption on its own. A difference is a techniques that is used. But it seems like over time, we now see it more like bribery and corruption in itself. But could there be maybe you lobby in order for them to act effectively, not to make it look as if, oh, this does not matter?
No, the language lobby, you know, in parliamentary
system,
in a parliamentary setting,
okay,
you know, it's not corruption.
Exactly.
Because that language, you can use it all over the world.
Yeah, that was why I used it like that.
It's a global language, you know, parliamentary language. The whole essence of lobbying for your bill to be passed is to meet the relevant stakeholders within the National Assembly. Okay. For instance, the committee, the anti-corruption committee.
Yeah, anti-corruption committee.
You know, because those are the committees that will look at whatever. Yeah. You know, once so they will be the ones to even raise the motion, you know, on the floor of the House, or if someone else who is interested in our work picks it up, you know, by the time the General House looks at it in the committee of whole, then they could say, okay, they refer it to the committee responsible for maybe anti-corruption, right? So once it gets there, it is also part of those who are interested, you know, to meet with the committee and to let them understand, you know, why those changes are needed, you know, in that law. And that's what we call lobby. It's not about
giving of money and taking of money. You know, when you mention lobby in this part of the world, people actually think it's giving of money. Okay,
it's about speaking to the relevant people within the setting,
stakeholders,
you know, and then getting their buy-in into the law to push it. Because if you don't do that, it might just remain in the files there, you know.
Okay, talking about the giving of money, taking of money, bribery and corruption in itself, how do we distinguish between both? Because there are some cases where somebody will tell you, or the court will tell you, it is bribery, it is not corruption, or it is corruption, it is not bribery. Is there a thin line in between both?
Yes, there's a thin line between bribery, and the issue of bribery involves two parties.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one offering,
another one taking,
and another taking. To have something done.
Yeah.
That is bribery.
Okay.
Yeah. But corruption, you know, you have it both what we call petty corruption. Yeah. And then you also have the what we call grand corruption. Corruption.
So when you say petty and grand, you also give us the details to that.
Yeah, the petty corruption has to do with small stealing within the offices, you know, within public system, you know.
Okay.
But the grand corruption, as the name goes, is the big time, you know, stealing that could involve, you know, huge amounts of money, you know, that will involve compromising the system, you know, to move such huge amount of money from, you know, a system. Yeah. So that's what grand corruption is about. So between the petty corruption and the some law enforcement agencies. If you are traveling on the road, you know,
you are collecting something.
That's one you could refer to as petty corruption.
Okay.
But the grand corruption is the one that, you know, involves you know, profit shifting, over invoicing, you know, and all of those that people will perpetrate, you know, within the public space.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at the role of technology in leveraging the actors. Do you think technology have a big role to play in terms of the actors in itself?
Yeah, that's one of the recommendations of the research, that there's the need for us to leverage technology, you know, to drive e-governance within, you know, the MDAs. Yeah. Because this era of technology, even with artificial intelligence, you know, it's even speedier, you know, in terms of driving information. So this is not a time, you know, you rely on paper.
Paperwork alone.
And in tackling corruption, you know, by the time there is electronic transmission, real-time transmission of information and data, you know, it will be difficult, you know, for it to be controverted, except maybe the system is compromised.
Absolutely.
You know, otherwise it is something that, you know, it can be verified. You know, so that's why the recommendation coming from us is to say that the Actus, the various units should, begin now to. So that's the kind of support the federal government should, give to the Actus. They should provide, technological equipment and devices to strengthen the Actus within the MDAs.
Okay. All right. We're still looking into the conversation on governance and development, sponsored by ANEJ, the role of the civil society in the fight against anti-corruption, the bodies that has been put in place by the government, the ICPC, the EFCC, and the likes, in tackling and fighting corruption, the fight against anti-corruption. We're going to break on the show. When we return, it will be the concluding segment of the program. And my guest, Dr. Leo Atakpo, is still with me live in the studio. We're on a short break on the program. All right, welcome back. It's the on to the program, Governance and Politics, where we are looking at the fight against anti-corruption, a program sponsored by ANEJ. And I still have my guest, Dr. Leo Atakpo, the Executive Deputy Director of ANEJ, joining me live in the studio. So before we went on that break, let's now look at bringing it down to the local level, like to the people in the street, bringing it from top to bottom, to the states, to the local government, to the streets and the people around. How can we leverage using probably the social media or even the print and electronic media where we are right now talking about this? How can it be brought down for the people to understand what this assessment really is in the fight against anti-corruption in Nigeria?
Yeah, some of the activities we are going to embark upon will be, the public awareness around the findings, the research findings. One of which is happening here in ITV already. To let people know that this research is out and these are the, findings. These are the recommendations that we are making. In terms of cascading it down, we will. We will work with the Edo State government. We've been speaking with some of the officials of the government. They need to set up these kind of units within the MDAs. Because again, Actus is not meant only for the federal MDAs. And as we speak, there is a zonal office of ICPC. Here in Benin. And so we expect that we will work with the ICPC, we will work with the Edo State government to set up such similar units within the MDAs in Edo State, in Delta State, and all the coverage area of the ICPC office. Because again, at the end of the day, it will be a win-win, both for the government and the people. Because when you set up the MDAs, the whole idea is, when you set up the Actus within the MDAs, in Edo State, for instance, it will help the government to plug leakages. It will help to boost transparency in government, the equivalent administration. When you set up such in all the MDAs, it will help to boost transparency in that. And one thing I've picked from some of his comments since assuming office is the fact that he's interested in transparency, he's interested in accountability. And Actus will enable all of that to happen across the MDAs. So working with the state government, working with the ICPC, we will be able, to institutionalize the Actus in the various state governments. So the next phase of work now is to see how we can cascade what is happening already at the federal level, down to the state level. If it will even take, getting the State House of Assembly, to pass a law, to give to the government that to happen. Fine, that will be interesting. And we are happy to also work with the progressive Attorney General of the state, to make this happen. We have been having some conversation with the Attorney General,
Okay.
who is also a very progressive element,
Yeah.
you know, as far as these issues are concerned,
Okay.
you know, to ensure that either whatever name, it may not be actors,
Yeah.
you can call it integrity units,
Okay.
you know, within the ministries, departments, and agencies.
Yeah.
We just set up those integrity units across, you know, the various MDAs in the state. So the whole idea is to ensure that, you know, procurement processes are followed,
Yeah.
and that red flags are quickly, you know, tracked,
Okay.
and there are no leakages within, you know, the government
Cycle.
system. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the whole idea. So it is win-win to plug the loopholes for leakages, financial leakages, you know, so such that at the end of the day, there is a value for money for, you know, at the government annual budget, you know, you will be able to say that, yes, we budgeted this, we were able to release this,
Yeah.
and we achieved this. You know, in very clear
So in essence, transparency.
transparency, and then the public.
Yeah.
You know, we have ownership
Okay.
of what government is doing.
Okay.
Government will say, the people will be sure to say, yes, we were aware of this, we were aware of this,
Yeah.
and we were part of it.
Okay.
Because again, there will be instances for, you know, meetings like town hall meetings,
Yeah, town hall
where some
meetings.
discussions around some of this will happen.
Okay.
Particularly if it's project related, program related,
Yeah.
you know, citizens can be pulled together by government
Okay.
to say, okay, let us come together in this maybe Rokotaho, let us discuss this particular program or this particular project that we are discussing. And then those integrity units of government will follow up with all of those.
Okay.
Government releases their budget, the annual budget, they pick it up, and then they follow with the releases to the various MDAs. And then they track, they monitor,
Okay.
you know, expenditure of government to ensure that, you know, at the end of every financial year,
Yeah.
you know, money that was budgeted and whatever was
Is
released
judiciously
is
spent.
judiciously, you know, used in the common interest
Of the people. Okay.
So that's the whole essence.
All right. As we wrap up, 1 minute, talking about the people working in the MDAs, the ministries, how can their conscience be purged from not even thinking of wanting to take one or two? Because that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, you see.
1 minute as we wrap up.
Yeah, you see, corruption is a big problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even the institutions fighting corruption.
It's also
you
a
also
problem.
have to fight corruption.
Absolutely, within the
institution.
system.
That is how bad it is in this country.
Yeah.
You know, so but it also have to do with picking champions, drivers
Okay.
of this process.
Yeah.
People with integrity.
Okay.
So you don't deploy people without integrity to
man some places.
such units.
Okay.
For instance.
Absolutely.
If you are setting up those units,
Yeah.
you will pick people that you know have integrity, people you trust.
Absolutely.
You know that will not betray your
Yeah,
cause.
yeah.
You know, those are the people you put in those in such units
Okay.
that will drive the process for the state.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Leo Atakmo. We appreciate your time on the program.
Thank you.
That's how far we can go on the show today. Next week, we'll be back again to take you through. I am Lawrence Osifo. You can follow An Edge on its social media displayed on the screen, the phone numbers and email addresses. Send your email, send your informations to the email and the phone numbers displayed on the screen to get more information about the fight against anti-corruption in Nigeria. We'll see you again on the other one next week. I'm Lawrence Osifo. Bye for now.